Look, nobody tells you when you sign up for station maintenance duty that you'll end up elbow-deep in alien biology with absolutely zero qualifications and a pack of interstellar apex predators breathing down your neck. But that's exactly where Selina found herself on what started as a perfectly mundane rotation aboard Pinnacle 9, and honestly, she should have seen it coming. Selina spent most of her days in the guts of the station, literally. While diplomats and traders conducted their oh-so-important business in the polished upper decks, she crawled through ventilation shafts, replaced corroded conduits, and kept the air breathable for 12 different species with 12 different atmospheric requirements. Glamorous? Not even close. Necessary? Absolutely. Appreciated? Well, let's just say maintenance techs ranked somewhere between furniture and mild annoyances in the grand hierarchy of station life. On this particular rotation, station time reading 1,800 hours, though what that meant in actual circadian terms depended entirely on which species you asked. Selina was 3 levels down in the commercial district, wedged between a protein synthesizer outlet and a shop selling what the proprietor insisted were authentic Earth artifacts, but looked suspiciously like mass-produced knockoffs from the manufacturing moon orbiting Proxima 5. The ventilation grid had been acting up for weeks. Nothing catastrophic, just enough of a wheeze and rattle to generate complaint forms, which generated work orders, which generated Selina's current position, flat on her back, magnetic wrench in hand, staring up at centuries-old ductwork that predated half the species currently using the station. "Piece of absolute junk," she muttered, twisting a bolt that had probably been over-torqued by some engineer who'd been dead for 80 cycles. Who designed this? Someone's malicious uncle with a grudge against future generations. The bolt gave way with a screech that set her teeth on edge. Rust particles, or whatever the alien equivalent was, rained down onto her face, because of course they did. Selina spat, wiped her eyes, and seriously reconsidered her life choices. She'd scored high enough on the aptitude tests to qualify for actual engineering positions, but no, she'd wanted adventure, wanted to see the galaxy, wanted to be part of something bigger than terrestrial life. Well, congratulations, past Selina. You're seeing the galaxy's ductwork. Living the dream. She was reaching for her diagnostic scanner when she heard it. A sound that didn't belong in the sterile hum of station ambience. A whimper, high-pitched and unmistakably distressed, followed by the scrape of claws on deck plating. Selina rolled out from under the vent, tool in hand, ready to shoo away whatever maintenance drone had wandered into her workspace. Except, it wasn't a drone. Limping toward her, leaving a thin trail of something dark and viscous, was a Crixoth cub. Now, for context, because this is important. Crixoth adults stand roughly 2 meters tall at the shoulder, mass somewhere around 300 kilos of muscle and murder, and are widely regarded as the kind of species you don't irritate unless you have a death wish and excellent life insurance. They're apex predators from a high-gravity moon where everything either eats you or is poisonous, and they've got a reputation across 6 sectors for being simultaneously honorable and absolutely terrifying. Their cubs, however, look like someone took a wolf, a bear, and possibly a nightmare, shrunk them down to the size of a large dog, gave them iridescent fur that shifts colors in certain light, and added eyes that look way too intelligent for comfort. This particular cub was charcoal-colored with silver markings along its spine, and it was dragging its left hind leg at an angle that made Selina wince in sympathy. The whimpering intensified as it spotted her, and instead of fleeing, which would have been the sensible response to encountering a strange alien, it limped faster in her direction. "Whoa! Hey, easy there!" Selina said, setting down her wrench and raising both hands in what she hoped was a universal gesture of non-aggression. Easy, little guy. Or girl. Sorry, I can't actually tell with your species, and asking seems rude. The cub reached her toolbox and simply collapsed. Not dramatically, just a graceless heap of exhausted creature who'd clearly reached the absolute limit of its endurance. It looked up at her with eyes that were far too golden and far too aware, and made a sound somewhere between a whine and a chirp that translated roughly to, "Please help me. I'm in so much pain, and I'm scared." You didn't need a translator for that. That was universal. Selina's mother had been a veterinarian back on Earth, specialized in large animals, the kind that could kick your head clean off if you approached wrong. Growing up, Selina had watched her mom handle everything from panicked horses to aggressive cattle, with a combination of calm competence and gentle firmness that seemed almost magical. She'd absorbed some of that through sheer proximity, though she'd never planned to use it. Life's funny that way. Okay, let me see," she murmured, dropping into a crouch and moving slowly, giving the cub time to track her movements. "I'm going to look at your leg, all right? Just look. No touching yet." The cub's ears, triangular and surprisingly mobile, swiveled toward her voice. It didn't growl, didn't snap, just watched with that unnerving intelligence while she examined the injury. The leg was bad. Really bad. A gash ran along the cub's haunch, deep enough that Selina could see muscle tissue beneath the matted fur. Worse, something was lodged in the wound, something metallic that caught the corridor's lighting and glinted with an oily sheen. The surrounding flesh was inflamed, discolored in ways that screamed infection in any language. "Oh, you poor thing," Selina breathed. "How long have you been walking around like this? And where are your—" She didn't get to finish that question, because the cub, apparently deciding she was trustworthy, simply flopped its head onto her knee and closed its eyes. Just like that. Complete trust from a species that reportedly didn't trust anyone outside their pack structure. Selina sat there, frozen, very aware that she was now responsible for a juvenile member of one of the galaxy's most formidable species. Her toolbox was within reach. She had basic first aid supplies, standard issue for maintenance techs, because injuries happened when you worked with heavy machinery and sharp metal. Nothing designed for alien physiology, but the fundamentals of wound care were fairly universal, right? Right. She was absolutely going to tell herself that, and not think about how spectacularly this could go wrong. Moving carefully, she retrieved her first aid kit, flipped it open, and assessed her options. Antiseptic, probably fine, assuming Crixoth didn't have some bizarre reaction to standard compounds. Sterile gauze couldn't hurt. Her micro-welder, typically used for precision repairs on circuit boards, may be useful for extraction if she was very, very careful. "All right, kid, here's the deal," she said softly, keeping her tone conversational. "I'm going to clean this wound, and it's probably going to hurt. You can bite my toolbox if you need to, but please, please don't bite me. I'm pretty sure my species is crunchier than yours, and I'd like to keep all my limbs." The cub cracked one eye open, made a sound that might have been agreement or might have been, "You're an idiot," and closed it again. Selina took that as consent. She worked quickly, but gently, using a cloth soaked in antiseptic to clean around the wound. The cub flinched, muscles going taut, but didn't pull away. She kept talking the whole time, maintaining that steady stream of calm narration her mother had always used. "That's it. You're doing great. I know it stings. Believe me, I've had antiseptic in cuts before, and it's the worst. but it's killing all the nasty stuff that shouldn't be in there. So we're making progress. The metallic object was the real problem. It was embedded at least 2 centimeters deep, and the tissue had started growing around it in an attempt at healing that had only made things worse. Selina switched on her micro-welder, adjusting it to its lowest setting, and used its magnetic field to gently probe the shard. The cub's eyes shot open, and it let out a sound that was definitely a growl. I know, I'm sorry," Selina said, not stopping. "Almost got it. Just a little more. And there!" The shard came free with a soft magnetic pulse, and Selina held it up to the light. It was roughly the size of her thumbnail, irregular and sharp, with that distinctive oily shimmer that marked certain station construction materials. Quantum steel composite, if she wasn't mistaken. Stuff that was great for hull plating, but absolutely terrible if it got inside living tissue. "No wonder you were in rough shape," she told the cub, setting the shard carefully aside. "This stuff's mildly toxic even to humans. For your biology? Must have felt like poison." She packed the wound with antibiotic gel, probably the wrong kind, possibly useless, but definitely better than nothing, and wrapped it with gauze, securing it with medical tape that she really hoped wouldn't pull out too much fur when it came off. The cub, remarkably, let her work without protest. By the time she'd finished, it had relaxed again, breathing steadier, the tension draining from its small body. "There," Selina said, sitting back on her heels. "That's the best I can do with what I've got. You really need a proper medic, someone who knows your species' physiology. But this should hold until—" The lights went out. Not the dimming that preceded scheduled maintenance, not the flicker of a power fluctuation. Every light in the corridor died simultaneously, plunging them into absolute darkness. The emergency lockdown klaxon sounded half a second later, a wailing shriek that meant one of 3 things: hull breach, hostile boarding, or critical system failure. Selina's hand automatically went to the cub, finding warm fur in the darkness, feeling it tremble against her palm. "It's okay," she whispered, though she had absolutely no idea if it was okay. "Just stay." The emergency lighting kicked in, bathing the corridor in dim red illumination, and Selina's heart stopped. Standing in a perfect semicircle around her and the cub, close enough that she could have reached out and touched the nearest one, were 12 adult Krixoth. 12. They were massive in the way that defied proper perception. Her brain kept trying to recategorize them as vehicles or small buildings, rather than living creatures. Their fur ranged from midnight black to storm cloud gray, all of them marked with those distinctive silver patterns that seemed to shift in the emergency lighting. Their eyes, uniformly golden, reflected the red glow like molten metal. None of them were moving. None of them were making a sound. They were just watching. The cub chirped, a happy little sound, and tried to stand on its bandaged leg. Selina's hand tightened reflexively, steadying it, her eyes never leaving the wall of predators surrounding them. This was it. This was how she died. Accidentally stolen some pack's cub, and now they were going to— The largest Krixoth, a female with scars crossing her muzzle and shoulders, broad enough to carry 3 humans comfortably, took a single step forward. Selina's breath caught. Every survival instinct she possessed screamed at her to run, but her mother's voice echoed in her memory. Never run from a predator. They're hardwired to chase. So she stayed perfectly still, one hand on the cub, the other clutched in her lap, and waited for whatever came next. The scarred female lowered her massive head, bringing those golden eyes level with Selina's, close enough that she could feel hot breath against her face, could smell something like pine and copper and ozone. They stared at each other for what felt like several lifetimes. Then, slowly, deliberately, the Crixoth female settled onto her haunches and made a sound. Low, rumbling, almost questioning. From somewhere down the corridor, Selina heard running footsteps, human voices shouting orders, the metallic click of weapons being readied. Station security had arrived, and she had a feeling things were about to get significantly more complicated. Station security rounded the corner at a tactical sprint, weapons raised, looking every bit like they'd trained for this exact scenario in some nightmare simulation designed by a sadistic instructor. Which, to be fair, they probably had. Pinnacle 9 didn't hire soft security. They made it exactly 6 meters before freezing mid-stride. 12 Crixoth turning to look at you simultaneously has that effect. It's the kind of moment where your hindbrain overrides every bit of training and professionalism and screams one very clear message. You are prey, and you have been noticed. The lead security officer, a stocky human male whose name patch read Kowalski, slowly, very slowly, lowered his pulse rifle. Smart man. "Nobody move," he said, voice remarkably steady considering the circumstances. "Someone get me a translator, and someone get Commander Philippa down here right now." The scarred Crixoth female hadn't taken her eyes off Selina, but one of her ears swiveled toward the security team. Acknowledging them, Selina realized, not threatened by them, just aware. "Selina Ortiz?" Kowalski called out, apparently having accessed her station profile through his helmet display. "You all right?" "Define all right," Selina managed, surprised her voice worked at all. The cub had curled against her side, radiating warmth through her maintenance coveralls. "I'm uninjured, if that's what you're asking. The cub needed medical attention. I provided what I could." "The cub is—" Kowalski's eyes tracked to the small form pressed against Selina, then up to the ring of adults, and she watched him put the pieces together with the kind of dawning horror that would have been funny under different circumstances. "Oh. Oh, no." "Yeah," Selina said. "So, that translator? Might want to speed that up." The thing about Pinnacle Numbings was that it prided itself on being a model of interspecies cooperation. 36 species called the station home, conducted business here, raised families here. The station had protocols for everything: dietary requirements, atmospheric preferences, cultural taboos, religious accommodations. They had entire departments dedicated to making sure everyone could coexist peacefully. Those protocols did not, apparently, include what to do when a human accidentally becomes the focal point of an entire Crixoth pack. A technician hurried forward with a portable translation unit, setting it on the deck plating between Selina and the scarred female. The device powered up with a soft chime, its holographic interface cycling through language matrices. The Crixoth female made that rumbling sound again, and after a moment's processing, the translator converted it to standard. "You touched Kix." Selina blinked. Kix. The cub had a name. Of course, it had a name. Yes. Kix was injured. The wound was infected. I cleaned it and removed a piece of quantum steel composite that was lodged in the tissue. More rumbling, this time with an edge that made Selina's stomach clench. The translator worked through it. Our medics said Kix could not be saved. Too much poison. Too much pain. They gave, what is your word? Mercy killing would come soon. Oh. Oh no, the female continued, her massive head tilting slightly. Station medics refused to see Kix. Said Crixoth too dangerous. Said cubs cannot control claws during treatment. Said liability too high. The last word came out with particular venom, even through the translator's neutral processing. Selina felt something cold settle in her chest. She'd heard rumors about species discrimination on the station. Everyone had. But hearing it stated so bluntly, learning that a child had been left to suffer because of bureaucratic risk assessment and species prejudice, that was something else entirely. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "That's inexcusable." The female made a sound the translator couldn't quite process, something between a laugh and a growl. "You are sorry. You, who knew nothing of our biology. You, who had metal-turning tools and wound cloth. You fix what medics with their machines and knowledge would not." "I really didn't do much," Selina protested, which was probably the wrong thing to say given the circumstances, but accuracy mattered to her. "Basic wound cleaning, foreign object removal, antiseptic application. Any first-year medical student could have done better." "But they did not." The female leaned closer, and Selina fought every instinct not to lean back. "I am Ixmora, pack leader. Kix is my youngest. 3 cycles ago, Kix fell through damaged grating on lower deck. We asked for help. They said no. We begged. They said no. We watched our cub suffer, and we could do nothing." The other Crixoth had begun moving, closing the circle tighter. Not threatening, Selina realized with growing unease. Witnessing. "I accessed station security feeds," Ixmora continued. "Watched you work. Watched you speak gently while causing necessary pain. Watched you treat Kix as precious, as worthy of care. Do you understand what this means?" "I was doing what anyone decent would do," Selina said, though her voice had gone somewhat higher than normal. The cub, Kix, had started making a purring sound, apparently perfectly content despite the mounting tension. "No." Ixmora's voice, even translated, held absolute certainty. "Most species see Crixoth and see only danger, see teeth, see claws, see things that could kill them. They do not see children. They do not see pain. They do not see family." The way she said that last word made something in Selina's chest tighten. Heavy footsteps announced the arrival of Commander Philippa, who took in the scene with the kind of expression that suggested she was already composing the incident report and hating every word of it. She was a tall woman, gray-haired and steel-eyed, with the bearing of someone who'd seen too much bureaucratic nonsense to be impressed by anything short of actual apocalypse. This, apparently, qualified. "Right," Philippa said, voice clipped. "Someone explain this to me in terms that won't require me to file diplomatic disaster paperwork." Kowalski attempted a summary. Philippa's expression grew progressively more grim. When he finished, she pinched the bridge of her nose. "Let me see if I understand. Our medical staff refused treatment to an injured child because of species liability concerns. Our maintenance tech provided emergency first aid. And now we have an entire Crixoth pack in our commercial district engaged in... What, exactly?" Ixmora spoke directly to the translator. "We are asking, no, we are telling. Your Selina will finish treating Kix. Will ensure full healing. Will do what your professionals refused." "I'm not a doctor," Selina said, because apparently she hadn't learned when to keep her mouth shut. "I fix air circulation systems. I replaced a coolant regulator this morning. I have 0 medical training beyond basic first aid, and I definitely don't know anything about Crixoth physiology beyond what I can guess from general mammalian anatomy, which might not even apply, because you're from a completely different evolutionary..." "We do not care about your credentials." Ixmora's interruption was gentle but implacable. "We care about results. We care that you tried when others would not. We care that Kix breathes easier now than in 3 cycles." Philippa held up a hand. Forgive the indelicate question, but what happens if she refuses? Or if she tries and fails? The silence that followed was the kind that has weight, that presses against your chest and makes breathing difficult. If she refuses, Ixmora said slowly, we will not harm her. That would be wrong, ungrateful. But we will remember that humans say kind words, yet act no different than others. We will remember that your species talks of honor and compassion, but delivers neither. And if I fail? Selina asked, surprised at her own boldness. If I try my best and Kix doesn't make it? Ixmora turned those golden eyes back to her. Then you tried. That is more than we have been given until now. Kix has survived 3 cycles with that poison inside. You have given more time, more hope. We do not ask for miracles. We ask for effort, for caring, for being seen as worth saving. The cub, Kix, chose that moment to lick Selina's hand with a tongue that felt like warm sandpaper. Selina looked down at the small creature, at the bandage already seeping through slightly, at the trust in those 2 intelligent eyes. She thought about her mother, who taught her that caring for something vulnerable was the most important skill a person could have. She thought about the medics who'd refused this child treatment, who'd let bureaucracy and prejudice override basic compassion. She thought about what kind of person she wanted to be. I'll need supplies, she heard herself say, proper ones. Access to xenobiology databases, a clean space to work, and absolutely no interference while I'm working. I don't care if it takes hours. Ixmora made a sound that might have been approval. You will have these things. Philippa looked like she wanted to protest, probably had a dozen regulations she should be citing. But she just nodded once, sharp and decisive. Kowalski, clear Cargo Bay 3. Get her whatever she asks for. Selina stood carefully, Kix wobbling upright beside her, leaning against her leg. All right then, she said, looking at the circle of apex predators who were now apparently her responsibility. Let's go save a life. Cargo Bay 3 had been hastily converted into something resembling a medical facility, assuming your definition of medical facility included whatever station personnel could grab in under 20 minutes while quietly panicking. Selina stood in the middle of it, hands on hips, surveying the organized chaos and wondering if this was what actual doctors felt like, or if they too occasionally wanted to scream into the void. Probably the latter. Medicine seemed like screaming into the void kind of work. Someone had brought portable lighting rigs, the kind used for hull inspections, which bathed the space in harsh white light that made everything look simultaneously too clinical and not clinical enough. A folding table, normally used for inventory counts, served as her operating surface, covered in sterile sheeting that at least looked official. Her tools were laid out with the precision she usually reserved for delicate circuit work. Micro-welders, magnetic extractors, probability sensors meant for detecting quantum fluctuations in hull integrity. Not exactly surgical instruments, but they'd have to do. The Crixoth pack had positioned themselves around the perimeter of the bay, forming a living barrier between Selina and the rest of the universe. They sat in perfect silence, 12 statues carved from muscle and menace, their golden eyes tracking her every movement. No pressure. Kix lay on the table, looking smaller in the harsh lighting, the silver markings along the cub's spine catching the light in ways that reminded Selina uncomfortably of circuitry patterns. The bandage she'd applied earlier was completely soaked through now, dark with blood and other fluids she couldn't identify. Right, Selina muttered, pulling up the xenobiology database on her datapad. Let's see what we're working with. The Crixoth files were disappointingly thin. Most of the information focused on combat capabilities: bite force that could crush reinforced alloys, retractable claws capable of scoring hull plating, reaction times that put most species to shame. Their biology section read like an afterthought, clearly compiled by people more interested in threat assessment than actual understanding. Cardiovascular system: high pressure, dual-chambered hearts, coagulation factor roughly 60% slower than human baseline. That was a problem. Slow coagulation meant Kix could bleed out faster than Selina could work. Immune response: aggressive. Foreign materials trigger immediate rejection protocols that can lead to systemic inflammation. Also a problem. That explained why the quantum steel fragment had caused such extensive damage. Pain tolerance: extremely high in adults, significantly lower in juveniles. Note: cubs under stress may experience involuntary claw extension. Selina looked at Kix's paws, at the claws currently sheathed but visible beneath the fur. Yeah, let's avoid that if possible. She pulled up chemical composition analyses, cross-referencing Earth medications with Crixoth biology. The antiseptic she'd used earlier was apparently non-toxic, which was a relief. Most human antibiotics were useless or actively harmful, which was less relieving. Anesthetics ranged from ineffective to potentially lethal. Fantastic, she breathed. So we're doing this old school. Ixmora rose and padded closer, moving with a grace that something her size had no right to possess. You have concern. Multiple concerns, actually, Selina said, not looking up from the datapad. The fragment I removed earlier was only part of the problem. According to what I'm reading, quantum steel composite breaks down into smaller particles when exposed to organic fluids, which means there are probably microscopic pieces throughout the surrounding tissue, all of them slowly poisoning Kix's system. Can you remove them? Maybe. Probably. I don't know. Selina ran a hand through her hair, realized it was shaking slightly, and forced it back to her side. I've got magnetic extraction equipment that should be able to locate and pull the particles. But the wound is deeper than I initially thought, and the tissue damage is extensive. Plus, Crixoth coagulation is slower than human standard, which means controlling bleeding is going to be... Will Kix die? The question was flat, emotionless, the kind of tone that comes from already accepting the worst and needing only confirmation. Selina met Ixmora's eyes. Not if I have anything to say about it. The Crixoth leader held her gaze for a long moment, then returned to her position with the pack. Then we will not distract you further. Selina took a deep breath, pulled on sterile gloves that were definitely not designed for this purpose, and picked up her micro-welder. All right, Kix, let's finish what we started. The cub's ears flicked toward her voice, and those golden eyes tracked her movements with unnerving focus. Selina had treated the family dog once after a fight with a fence, stitched up a torn ear while her mother talked her through it, and that dog had trusted her completely. This felt similar, except the stakes were galactic politics instead of just disappointing her mom. No pressure. Again. She started by removing the makeshift bandage, working carefully to avoid pulling fur. The wound underneath looked worse than before. The edges were inflamed, discolored tissue spreading outward in a pattern that suggested active infection. She cleaned it again with antiseptic, noting how Kix's muscles went rigid, but the cub didn't pull away. Good. That's good. You're being so brave, Selina murmured, falling into the same patter her mother had used. Talking helped keep her own nerves steady, helped the patient stay calm. Now comes the tricky part. I'm going to use this magnetic extractor to find those microscopic particles. It's going to feel weird, like a pulling sensation deep in the muscle. Try not to move, okay? She activated the extractor, adjusting its sensitivity to detect quantum steel's specific magnetic signature. The device hummed softly and almost immediately started registering hits. Dozens of them, scattered throughout the tissue like metallic shrapnel. "Oh, Kix," Selina whispered. "You've been walking around with all this inside you. No wonder you were in such pain." The extraction process was painstaking. Each particle had to be located, isolated, and carefully pulled free without damaging surrounding tissue. Selina worked with the precision she normally reserved for repairing quantum processors. One wrong move, and you could cascade fail an entire system. Except here, the system was alive and trusting her not to mess up. Minutes stretched into an hour. Sweat dripped into her eyes. Her hands cramped. The pack hadn't moved, hadn't made a sound, but she felt their attention like physical weight. Kix stayed remarkably still for the first 90 minutes. Then, as Selina probed deeper into the wound, the cub's breathing quickened. A whimper escaped, high and distressed. Ixmora was there instantly, her massive bulk somehow moving silently across the deck. She lowered her head to Kix's, making a sound, low, rhythmic, soothing. A lullaby, Selina realized. Universal across species, apparently. "Almost done," Selina said, though she wasn't sure if it was true. "Just a few more pieces, and then we can—" Kix jerked suddenly, pain overriding control. Claws extended with an audible snick, digging into the table's metal surface. The cub's back arched, and Selina barely pulled her hand back in time to avoid serious injury. "Hold still! Please hold still," she said urgently. "I know it hurts. I'm sorry, but I need you to—" Ixmora moved with startling gentleness, using her own bulk to pin Kix's shoulders to the table. Not roughly, but firmly, immobilizing the cub while continuing that rumbling song. Other pack members moved closer, adding their voices to the lullaby, creating a sound that resonated in Selina's chest. Kix's struggles weakened. The cub went limp, not unconscious, but accepting, trusting the pack to keep things safe, trusting Selina to make it stop hurting. She worked faster now, extracting the remaining particles with speed born of desperation. Finally, mercifully, the magnetic scanner registered clean. No more quantum steel fragments. But the wound still wouldn't close properly. Blood, darker than human blood, with an iridescent quality, welled up faster than she could blot it away. Crixoth coagulation was too slow, and the tissue was too damaged to self-repair quickly enough. Selina's mind raced. Standard coagulants were either untested or known to be toxic to Crixoth biology. She needed something universal, something that would promote clotting without triggering an immune response. Her mother's voice echoed in memory. "Nature's pharmacy, sweetheart. Half the medications we use came from plants and fungi first. Never underestimate what grows in the dirt." Selina's eyes widened. Her personal quarters. The tiny hydroponic garden she'd set up because earth plants reminded her of home. She'd been growing yarrow, partially for the smell, partially because her mother had always kept it around the veterinary clinic. Yarrow, ancient hemostatic properties, used for millennia to stop bleeding in everything from humans to livestock. "I need 5 minutes," she said abruptly, already moving toward the door. "Don't let anyone touch that wound. Keep pressure on it with clean gauze. I'll be right back." She ran through the corridors fast enough that 2 different species jumped out of her way, skidded into her quarters, grabbed the entire yarrow plant, roots and all, and ran back. The pack watched with interest as she crushed yarrow leaves between her gloved fingers, extracting the juice directly into the wound. It was primitive, unscientific, probably violated a dozen medical protocols. It worked. The bleeding slowed, then stopped. The wound edges began to draw together, coagulation finally kicking in properly with the yarrow's biochemical assistance. Selina held pressure, counting seconds, not daring to breathe. 30 seconds. 60. 2 minutes. The bleeding had stopped completely. She sealed the wound with medical adhesive, applied a proper bandage, and stepped back on legs that suddenly felt like water. Kix's breathing had steadied. The cub's eyes were closed, but the tension had drained from the small body. Sleeping. Not unconscious. Recovering. Ixmora released a sound that started as a growl and transformed into something else entirely. A howl that echoed through the cargo bay, vibrating in Selina's bones. The other pack members joined in, creating a harmony that was simultaneously beautiful and terrifying. Selina stood there, covered in blood and plant matter and sweat, tools scattered across her makeshift operating table, and felt something she couldn't quite name. Kix woke up 3 hours later, and Selina learned that a grateful Crixoth cub expresses affection by attempting to knock you flat on your back while making sounds that could charitably be described as enthusiastic shrieking. "Oof! Okay, yes, hi, you're welcome," Selina wheezed, trying to protect her vital organs, while a 50-kilo ball of fur and sharp edges climbed over her like she was personal playground equipment. "Easy, easy, you just had surgery. Well, surgery-adjacent procedure. You should be resting." Kix responded by licking her face with that sandpaper tongue, then biting gently on her sleeve and tugging, clearly wanting to play. "Your child has zero concept of convalescence," Selina told Ixmora, who was watching with what could only be described as amusement. "Crixeth young heal quickly once immediate danger passes," the pack leader said through the translator. "Kix feels better than in many cycles, wants to celebrate, wants to honor pack's newest member." Selina froze mid-attempt to extract her arm from Kix's mouth. "I'm sorry. What?" Ixmora rose to her full height, and the other pack members followed suit. 12 massive predators standing in unison creates a sound like distant thunder, and Selina felt her heart rate spike accordingly. The pack leader approached, each step measured and deliberate. She stopped directly in front of Selina, close enough that Selina could see the individual scars crossing her muzzle, count the silver hairs mixed with darker fur. "You saved Kix when our own kind could not," Ixmora said. "When your own kind would not. You did this expecting nothing, asking nothing, simply because it needed doing." She paused, head tilting. "Do you understand what this means to Crixoth?" "That you're grateful?" Selina offered weakly. "Which is lovely, really. But you were just being what we value most in the universe. You were being pack." The other Crixoth moved then, forming a circle around Selina and Ixmora. Not threatening, but ritualistic. Ceremonial. "Oh no. In our culture," Ixmora continued, "pack is everything. Pack is survival. Pack is purpose. We do not extend pack lightly. Most Crixoth live and die knowing only birth pack. But sometimes, rarely, one from outside proves themselves worthy, proves themselves kithborn." She lowered her massive head until her forehead touched Selina's. Gentle pressure, warm and solid, and impossibly strange. "Selina, who fixes broken things, we name you kithborn, honorary pack, under our protection across all Crixoth territories and beyond. What threatens you threatens us. What honors you honors us. What you need, we provide if able." One by one, each pack member approached and repeated the gesture, forehead to forehead, a moment of contact that felt intensely personal and utterly alien. Selena stood there, barely breathing, as 12 apex predators formally inducted her into their family structure. When the last one finished, Ixmora spoke again. This has never been given to human before, rarely to any species outside our own. You should know what you carry now. I'm honored. Selena's voice came out higher than intended. Also terrified, mostly honored. Some terror. It's a mixed emotional state. Ixmora made that sound that might have been laughter. Good. Healthy fear keeps one alive. But know this. Where you walk in Crixoth space, you walk as protected. Our enemies become yours. Our allies recognize you. Our resources open to you. The implications were staggering. Crixoth territory spanned multiple systems. They had trade agreements, defense pacts, cultural exchanges with dozens of species. Selena had just been handed diplomatic immunity and protection from one of the most formidable species in known space, because she'd bandaged a cub with plant juice and borrowed equipment. The universe was absolutely insane. Commander Philippa is going to need so much paperwork for this, Selena muttered. The cargo bay doors opened, and speak of the devil. Philippa entered, flanked by what looked like half the station's administrative staff. Behind them, Selena could see the corridor packed with curious onlookers from multiple species, all craning to get a view of the proceedings. News traveled fast on Pinnacle 9. Apparently, human inducted into Crixoth Pack was breaking news material. Philippa took in the scene with her usual unflappable expression, though Selena caught the slight widening of her eyes. I've just been informed by 3 different ambassadors, 2 trade representatives, and 1 very excited xenoanthropologist that I need to file formal recognition of a cross-species pack bond. Someone want to explain? Ixmora turned to face the commander, and Selena watched Philippa's instinctive step backward before training reasserted itself. Your Selena is Kithborn now. This will be recorded in pack histories, transmitted to Home Moon, recognized by all Crixoth everywhere. You should feel pride. Your species has produced one worthy of such honor. My species has produced someone who fixes ventilation systems and apparently performs emergency xenosurgery with gardening supplies, Philippa said dryly. Selena, you're getting a formal commendation, possibly a raise. Definitely a very long debrief with medical staff who would like to know how you accomplished what they deemed impossible. I got lucky, Selena said, and I had a patient who was brave enough to trust a complete amateur. Kix chose that moment to climb onto her shoulders, draping across them like the world's most dangerous scarf. The cub's purring vibrated through Selena's entire body. Right, Philippa said. I'll just add that to the report. Maintenance tech now serves as mobile furniture for juvenile apex predator. I'm sure that won't raise any safety concerns. Over the next hour, the cargo bay transformed into an impromptu celebration. Word had spread throughout the station, and species that normally kept their distance from Crixoth ventured closer, curiosity overcoming caution. Selena found herself fielding questions from everyone. How had she known what to do? What was the pack bonding ceremony like? Could she introduce them to Kix? The cub, for its part, basked in the attention while refusing to leave Selena's immediate vicinity. Every time she tried to move more than a few steps away, Kix followed, limping much less noticeably now, determined to maintain physical contact. You've acquired a shadow, Ixmora observed. Kix has decided you are secondary pack. This is unusual. Unusual how? Selena asked, gently preventing Kix from eating her datapad. Cubs bond primarily with birth pack until maturity. Secondary bonds form later, with chosen pack after proving hunts. Kix is young to make such choice. But Kix is also stubborn. Takes after mother. There was definite pride in that statement. So what does this mean, practically speaking? Ixmora considered. Kix will return to home moon with pack. Will grow, will train, will learn pack ways. But you are recognized as Kix's secondary pack now. When old enough to choose, Kix may seek you out, may wish to travel with you, protect you, hunt alongside you. I don't really hunt, Selena said, unless you count hunting down faulty power couplings. Then Kix will learn to hunt power couplings. Ixmora's tone suggested she wasn't entirely joking. As evening station time approached, the pack prepared to depart. They had a transport waiting in the docking ring, scheduled to leave for their home moon within the hour. Kix, however, had planted all 4 paws and refused to move toward the exit. Kix, come, Ixora commanded, her tone gentle but firm. The cub whined, pressed harder against Selena's leg. You need to go home, Selena told Kix, crouching down to eye level. You need to heal properly, be with your family, grow big and strong. I'm not going anywhere. And your mom says I can visit, so this isn't goodbye. It's just, see you later. Kix made a sound that was pure distress, and Selena felt something crack in her chest. Tell you what, she said, pulling off the small utility band she wore on her wrist, standard issue for maintenance crew, but she decorated it with earth symbols that reminded her of home. You take this, and I'll... She looked at Ixmora. Do you have something small I could keep? As a reminder? The pack leader made a thoughtful sound, then turned to one of the other adults. A brief exchange followed, too quiet for the translator to catch. The other Crixoth approached, dropped something into Selena's palm, and retreated. It was small, white, pointed. A tooth. Kix's first tooth, Ixmora explained. Saved from when it fell out 2 cycles ago. Traditional to keep for pack history. Now, tradition says, give to Kithborn, who saved the cub's life. Selena closed her fingers around it, feeling the smoothness of the enamel, the weight of what it represented. I'll treasure it, I promise. Kix, wearing the utility band around one small paw, finally allowed Ixmora to herd the cub toward the exit. But those golden eyes stayed locked on Selena until the pack disappeared around the corner. The cargo bay felt impossibly empty in their absence. Selena stood there, holding a Crixoth cub's tooth, covered in dried blood and plant matter, exhausted down to her bones. You know, Philippa said quietly, appearing at her elbow, when I approved your transfer to this station, your file said you wanted adventure, wanted to be part of something bigger than terrestrial life. Yeah, Selena said. I did. Congratulations. You've achieved that goal spectacularly. Selena laughed, the sound slightly unhinged. I just wanted to fix air ducts in space. How did this become my life? You cared when no one else would, Philippa said simply. That's how. 1 month later, Selena was elbow-deep in a malfunctioning recycler, because some things never changed, when her comm unit chirped. She ignored it, focused on realigning a particularly stubborn filter housing. It chirped again, and again. All right, she muttered, pulling free and checking the screen. 218 new messages. Interview requests from 3 major news networks. Job offers from medical research facilities. Invitations to speak at xenobiological conferences. A formal dinner invitation from the Crixoth ambassador to the Galactic Council. She deleted them all except one, a message from Ixmora, text only, in carefully translated standard. Hix grows strong, asks when secondary pack visits. Pack sends honor and respect. You are always welcome on the moon. Selena smiled, saved the message, and returned to her recycler. Her comm chirped again. She pulled it out, ready to delete another interview request, and froze. Someone had left a package at her quarters. The delivery notification included a scan of the contents. A small piece of quantum steel, polished to a mirror shine, set in a claw-crafted holder. Hix's first tooth mounted beside it. The note, translated from Crixoth. From Pack. You pack now, too. Selena looked at the tooth she'd been carrying in her pocket for a month, at the notification on her screen, at the recycler that still needed fixing. Some people changed the galaxy through grand gestures and political maneuvering. Others did it by being kind when kindness wasn't required, by trying when others refused, by seeing a wounded child and deciding that species didn't matter. Suffering did. She'd been the latter. And somehow, improbably, that had been enough. Her comm chirped one more time, a message from Station Medical, formally requesting she consult on a case involving a Thenix juvenile with a respiratory issue. They'd heard about her innovative approach